If you've ever asked yourself, why did she say that? Then do the opposite. This video is your answer. Women speak to protect themselves, not to reveal themselves. Their language is emotional camouflage. That's why you can't win by listening harder. You win by observing deeper. The moment you stop chasing clarity in her words and start reading her behavior, everything shifts. You stop guessing. You stop being confused. And you finally see what she really wants, even when she can't admit it herself. Men keep falling for language. They hear what a woman says and instantly assume it's truth. But here's the thing. Her words are not a window into her mind. They're a shield, a layer of smoke between what she feels and what she's willing to admit. In modern society, women are trained to say what sounds right, not what's real. They grow up learning to filter every statement through how it will be judged, by friends, by social media, by the world. When she says, "I want a kind man who listens," it's rarely a confession. It's a performance. What she actually means is closer to, "I want a man I can respect." A man strong enough to listen without losing himself. Words are safety. They let her sound good, stay likable, avoid criticism. But actions, those are unfiltered. When a woman says one thing and does another, she's not lying to you. She's lying to herself. Because deep down, her biology doesn't care about how things sound. It only responds to what makes her feel. That's why you'll hear her preach about loyalty, then flirt with chaos. You'll see her post quotes about good men, then spend her nights chasing attention from the ones she can't tame. Her words describe her ideal self, the image she wants the world to believe in. Her actions reveal her true self, the emotional creature driven by desire, status, and instinct. Every time you take her words literally, you enter her illusion. You start negotiating with a mask, and that's the fastest way to lose control, because you're no longer responding to reality, you're responding to her script. Behavioral psychology calls this the social defense mechanism. Humans, and especially women, use language to manage perception. It's not malicious, it's adaptive. But for men, it becomes a trap. You start believing that decoding her words will unlock her heart. It won't. Because her words were never the map to begin with. If you really want to understand a woman, don't analyze what she says. Observe what she repeats. Watch how she behaves when she's not performing, when no one's watching, when she doesn't think you're paying attention. That's when the truth leaks through. A woman might say she values honesty, but if she only responds to the thrill of danger, her nervous system already made the choice. She might tell you she wants a dependable man, but if she lights up only around those who challenge her, that's the data you trust. Men lose power not because they lack effort, but because they trust words over evidence. Remember this. Her words are the story she tells the world. Her actions are the confession she tells herself. Words are her mask. Actions are her truth. From the time a boy learns to speak, he's told one thing. Listen to women. Respect their feelings. Hear them out. Don't interrupt. And so he grows up believing that listening means understanding. But that belief becomes a trap. Because when you take a woman's words at face value, you stop noticing the contradictions that reveal who she really is. Most men don't realize this. Women speak through emotion, not precision. Their language is fluid, responsive to the moment, shaped by mood and context. What she says at 9 a.m. might not be what she feels at 9 p.m. Yet you, the logical man, treat her sentences as laws written in stone. You analyze every text, every word, every maybe, searching for certainty, when she herself isn't certain. That's how men get lost. She says, "I'm not ready for a relationship," and you back off respectfully. 3 weeks later, she's dating another guy. You feel betrayed, but what happened isn't betrayal. It's biology. When she said those words, she believed them. But then someone triggered a new emotional response, and her behavior followed that. not the speech she gave you. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the tension between what we say and what we do. Women resolve that tension by rewriting their story, not by confronting it. They rationalize the new action and move on. Men, on the other hand, internalize it, assuming they did something wrong. This is the invisible manipulation of language. Not because she's scheming, but because her words naturally filter reality through feeling. Every "I don't know," every "I'm just confused" is an emotional snapshot, not a stable truth. And here's where men lose ground. You think listening will earn trust. You think agreeing will earn connection. But what actually earns both is your ability to stay grounded while her words shift. Never let a woman's language pull you out of observation mode. Don't argue with her contradictions. Map them. If she says she hates drama but lives in it, don't correct her. Note it. If she says she wants peace but keeps chasing tension, don't confront. Remember. Your advantage isn't in debating her version of reality. It's in seeing how her actions rewrite it. You can't out-talk a woman who speaks from emotion, but you can out-observe her by detaching from the noise of words and focusing on patterns. The moment you stop expecting her words to match her feelings, you reclaim your clarity. And with clarity comes control. Because here's the truth. Every word she speaks is filtered through emotion. If you listen instead of observe, you'll always be one step behind. Every man has heard it. Women want a nice guy, so he becomes one. He listens, he compliments, he supports, he waits. He gives without asking, forgives without boundaries, and thinks patience will turn into desire. But she doesn't fall for him. She thanks him. She trusts him. She even says, "You're such a good man." Then she walks away and gives her body, her energy, her chaos to a man who doesn't treat her half as well. This is the paradox of the nice guy. He believes kindness equals attraction, but in reality, kindness without edge equals predictability, and predictability kills desire. Here's what most men never understand. Attraction is not built through safety. It's built through tension. A woman's emotional system is wired for stimulation, not comfort. When she feels too safe, too certain, too in control, her instincts turn off. She starts to feel like the man in the relationship. That's why the bad boy wins, not because he's cruel, but because he's unpredictable, assertive, and emotionally autonomous. He doesn't wait for permission to be desired. He creates it by leading the emotional rhythm. Let's look at it from a behavioral perspective. When you're nice in the hope of being liked, you're not giving, you're negotiating. You're saying, "I'll give you this comfort, this attention, this loyalty in exchange for validation." And women sense that trade instantly. It feels weak. It smells like fear. Now, contrast that with a man who doesn't chase approval. He gives when he wants to. He withholds when it's needed. He's capable of empathy, but not addicted to being liked. That tension, that sense that she can't fully predict him, keeps her emotionally engaged. She respects him because she can't fully control him. There's a story that repeats itself endlessly. A man meets a woman and thinks, "If I just prove I'm different from other guys, she'll see my value." So he becomes the emotional butler of her life. He listens, comforts, helps her move furniture, fixes her problems. And when she finally feels whole again, she leaves. Not out of cruelty, but because she no longer feels drawn. He didn't lose because he wasn't enough. He lost because he was too easy to predict. In attraction, uncertainty is oxygen. A woman doesn't crave comfort. She craves emotional gravity. She wants a man who makes her feel safe but keeps her guessing. She wants a man she can respect more than she can explain. So when she says, "I want a nice guy," hear it for what it is, a social script, not a desire. What she truly wants is strength wrapped in calm, not submission wrapped in smiles. Never confuse kindness with weakness. True power isn't in being agreeable. It's in being grounded enough to stay kind without losing your edge. She doesn't crave comfort. She craves the man she can't control. There's a hidden mechanism in every woman. A mental switch that determines whether she resists a man or devotes herself to him. I call it the good girl switch. And here's the truth most men never learn. You can't force it, you can't beg for it, and you can't buy it. You either trigger it or you don't. When a man earns a woman's admiration, something changes inside her. Her resistance fades, her nurturing instinct awakens, and she begins to want to give. Not because he demanded it, but because he commands it through presence. She starts cooking for him. She softens her tone. She becomes generous with affection and intimacy, and she doesn't do it out of obligation, she does it out of pride. Because pleasing a man she respects makes her feel more feminine. Most men try to earn this reaction by overgiving. Gifts, compliments, constant availability. But that never works, because the good girl switch only flips in the presence of a man she admires, not one she pities. A man who overcompensates looks like he's seeking approval, not expressing value. When a woman senses true masculine stability, calm dominance, grounded energy, direction without arrogance, her subconscious relaxes. That's when she feels safe enough to express her femininity. And femininity, at its core, is the instinct to give. Here's what's fascinating from a psychological point of view. Women are not happiest when they're being served. They're happiest when they're serving someone they respect. It activates a deep emotional pattern, the feeling of purpose, belonging, and emotional polarity. Contrast two men. The first one cooks, cleans, listens, does everything right. He's hoping that if he does enough, she'll finally appreciate him. The second man doesn't try to prove anything. He expects effort in return for his presence. He leads. He gives when it feels right, not when it's expected. She finds herself wanting to do more for him, to cook, to care, to please. Because through him, she reconnects with her feminine energy, and it feels good. That's why so many women who claim they want equality still find themselves happiest with a man who leads. It's not hypocrisy, it's biology. The good girl switch isn't about dominance, it's about polarity. Without polarity, there's no attraction, no passion, no emotional gravity. A woman doesn't become submissive out of weakness. She becomes nurturing when she feels she's in the presence of a man strong enough to hold space for her emotions without collapsing. Men who understand this stop chasing compliance. They build respect first, and affection follows naturally. You don't have to tell her to be good to you. You just have to make her want to. Because in the end, a woman doesn't submit to love. She submits to respect. There's a specific type of man women keep around but never touch. He's thoughtful, loyal, always available. He listens when she cries about another guy, gives her advice, and tells himself, one day she'll see I'm the one. But that day never comes. Because the moment you become her emotional cushion, you stop being her emotional trigger. And attraction doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in tension. Women often tell men, be patient, be nice, be her friend first. But that advice isn't meant to make you irresistible. It's meant to make you harmless. It keeps you safe to talk to, safe to lean on, but never dangerous enough to desire. That's the essence of the friend zone. She trusts you like family, but feels nothing primal toward you. Here's the psychological reason behind it. Female attraction is tied to polarity, the electric difference between masculine and feminine energy. When a man suppresses his sexual presence to appear safe, he unconsciously erases that polarity. He becomes neutral, emotionally flat, predictable, easy to manage. To her nervous system, that reads as no spark. Think about it. The man she complains about, the one who gives her headaches, also gives her butterflies. He frustrates her, challenges her, disrupts her calm. And that disruption keeps her emotionally engaged. It's the paradox most men never grasp. What irritates her also ignites her. Now compare that to the perfect gentleman. He does everything right, remembers birthdays, pays attention, shows up every time she calls. But because there's no tension, no challenge, she starts to see him as emotional background noise. The attraction fades before it ever begins. When she says, "You're such a good friend," that's not an invitation. It's a boundary. It means she feels safe around you because she doesn't have to navigate desire. It's not a compliment. It's the closing of a door. This is where most men fail, by taking female advice literally. When a woman tells you, "Just be patient, she'll come around," what she's really saying is, "Do the safe thing I would recommend if I were you." But that version of you isn't the man she desires. It's the version that makes her comfortable. You can't nice your way into attraction. Desire isn't negotiated through kindness, it's provoked through contrast. Men who escape the friend zone don't do it by trying harder. They do it by pulling back, by reclaiming polarity. They stop being her emotional service provider and start being the man she has to earn access to. Because here's the truth. Every time you act like her friend, you erase her desire. You reinforce the dynamic where she gives you validation instead of attraction. The only way to change that is to stop playing the role she wrote for you and start embodying the man she can't fully read. You don't need her permission to stop being her friend. You just need the courage to stop being predictable. By now, you've seen the pattern. What women say is often just a projection, an echo of what they want to believe about themselves. But what they do, that's where the truth hides. Most men keep asking the wrong question. What does she mean by that? A smarter man asks, what does she consistently do? Because no matter how complicated her words get, her behavior never lies for long. The first step to decoding women is simple. Stop reacting, start observing. Silence is your microscope. It reveals what her language tries to blur. There are 3 levels of female behavior every man should learn to read. Level 1, immediate reaction. When you enter a room, where do her eyes go first? Does her body face toward you or away? Does her tone lift when she speaks to you, or does it stay flat? Attraction shows up in milliseconds, through eye contact, posture, micro-expressions. If she's drawn to you, her physiology betrays her before her words can intervene. Level 2, consistency. This is where most men fail. She says she's busy, but still watches your stories. She says she's not ready, but texts you late at night. She says she wants honesty, but disappears when you give it. Patterns always tell the truth. When her actions and her language don't align, trust the pattern, not the excuse. Level 3, investment. Who's moving the story forward, you or her? Does she reach out first? Does she plan things? Does she try to reconnect when you pull back? A woman's investment is the clearest metric of interest. When she truly cares, she invests her time, her effort, her emotional energy. When she doesn't, she replaces you with attention from somewhere else. Most men ignore these signals because they're busy chasing verbal reassurance. They want her to say she cares. But attraction isn't spoken, it's acted. It's in the way she leans closer when you speak. It's in the tone she reserves only for you. It's in the small acts of effort that no one told her to make. Learning to decode behavior isn't about control, it's about clarity. When you stop taking words personally, you stop being emotionally manipulated. You no longer need to guess. You see her patterns for what they are: information. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Don't chase clarity in her words. Read her patterns. Stop analyzing her speeches and start tracking her consistency. Actions are data. Emotions are variables. The man who studies patterns never gets blindsided. Once you master observation, you gain emotional freedom. You stop asking, "Does she like me?" because her behavior already answered. You stop chasing confirmation because you've seen the evidence. And when you operate from evidence, not emotion, you become the one in control. Her words can confuse you. Her tone can soften you. But her behavior, it tells you everything. You just have to be still enough to see it. Everything you've just heard comes down to one truth. Women don't deceive men. Men deceive themselves. They hear words, ignore evidence, and then wonder why reality hurts. A woman's words are not her promise. They're her poetry. Beautiful, emotional, inconsistent. Her actions, on the other hand, are primal. They reveal instinct, desire, and emotional truth far beyond anything she'll admit out loud. You'll never control what a woman says. You'll never decode every sentence or every mood swing. But you can master the only thing that matters: your ability to see clearly, to stop reacting to her emotions and start observing her patterns. That's where your power begins. When you operate from evidence, you stop living in confusion. You no longer need to chase reassurance. You no longer negotiate your worth. You simply watch, and the truth reveals itself. Here's what most men never realize. You don't have to confront her when her words and actions don't match. You don't have to punish her, argue, or demand honesty. You just have to stay calm, stay grounded, and watch. Her consistency will answer everything, because the truth always exposes itself to those who wait in silence. So next time she says one thing and does another, don't react, observe. You're not losing control, you're reclaiming it. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe. Because once you start decoding women instead of obeying them, you stop being confused and start being in control. That's the real awakening. Not resentment, not revenge, but clarity. Remember this line and keep it close. Words are polite. Actions are primal. Words can charm you. Actions will reveal you. Don't trust what she says. She doesn't confess because you confront her. She confesses when you stop reacting. The truth doesn't leak under pressure. It leaks under calm. Every man who's ever begged for honesty made the same mistake. He thought intensity would bring clarity. It never does. The louder you ask, the quieter the truth becomes. But there's a method, a psychological rhythm, that makes a woman reveal more than she planned to. It's not about being harsh. It's about being unreadable. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how silence, awareness, and emotional control work together to expose what words can't hide. Because once she feels you've detached, her truth becomes her only way back in. Have you ever noticed how her version of events always sounds reasonable? Not exaggerated, not emotional, just reasonable enough to make you doubt your instincts. That's the art of perception control, the most subtle form of manipulation there is. See, women rarely lie to deceive. They lie to stabilize, to protect how you see them, to keep the emotional atmosphere safe, and to make sure they don't lose leverage. A woman's truth is always filtered through emotional safety. It's not about facts. It's about preservation. When she senses tension, when she feels your tone shift or your presence tighten, her brain doesn't say, "I'm about to lie." It says, "I need to protect the peace." That peace isn't about harmony. It's about control. She wants to manage your emotional reaction before you even realize you're reacting. Imagine this. You ask, "Where were you last night?" She looks you dead in the eye and says, I was just with some friends, nothing serious. Soft voice, calm tone, perfect pacing. Every piece of that answer was designed, not to deceive, but to contain. Because the truth isn't about what happened. The truth is about what she wants you to feel. That's why her words sound so clean, so logical. They're built like armor. Every sentence, every gesture, every pause is calculated to keep you where she wants you, uncertain, but not suspicious. You'll sense something is off, but you won't know why. You'll feel a dissonance between what she said and what your gut knows. And that's the exact space she needs to maintain her control. Here's the real psychology behind it. When a woman feels emotionally cornered, she doesn't fight. She redirects. She rewrites the moment to make you question your perception instead of her honesty. It's an instinctive form of narrative protection. The same mechanism that allows her to soothe, manipulate, and survive simultaneously. So when you hear her answer and it sounds perfectly balanced, perfectly convenient, don't just listen. Observe. Notice how her tone is too calm for the context. Notice how she smiles when she shouldn't. Notice how her eyes shift, not with guilt, but with calculation. She's not lying to you. She's managing your perception. And as long as she believes you're still operating in the dark, still trying to understand her instead of reading her, she'll keep doing it. Because it works. Because you make it easy. Because she knows you're focused on what she says, not why she's saying it. The illusion of honesty isn't built on lies. It's built on your blindness to emotional strategy. If you want the truth, you have to first change what she perceives you already know. Because the moment she thinks you're aware, the entire narrative starts to crack. Women don't tell the truth because you demand it. They tell it when they believe you already know. That's the quiet rule of feminine psychology. Honesty isn't a moral choice. It's a safety mechanism. When she senses you're naive, she edits reality. When she senses you're aware, she edits herself. You see, perception is leverage. The person who appears more conscious of the unspoken dynamic always holds control. Most men fail here. They show their confusion. They chase for clarification. They let their tone reveal uncertainty. Every question, every emotional reaction tells her exactly how much she can hide. But when your energy changes, when you stop chasing details and start observing patterns, the game shifts. She begins to feel it. Not because you said something clever, but because your silence, your posture, your focus all communicate one message. I see through this. Women are hypersensitive to perception. It's an evolutionary trait. Reading emotional cues was survival. So when you stop acting reactive, her brain can't predict your next move. That uncertainty unnerves her. She doesn't know what you've seen or what you've figured out. And that's when the walls start to crack. Try this once. When she gives an answer that doesn't sit right, don't confront it. Don't demand proof. Just pause. Let your eyes rest on her longer than she expects. Tilt your head slightly, as if you've connected something. Then say calmly, "You don't need to explain. I already see what's going on." That sentence alone rewires the conversation. You've just flipped the power dynamic without raising your voice. You've made her subconscious panic. Not out of guilt, but out of uncertainty. Because suddenly, she realizes she's not leading the narrative anymore. You are. The psychological term is anticipatory compliance. When someone believes another person holds hidden information, they unconsciously reveal more than intended to protect themselves. She'll start softening her tone, filling the silence with details you didn't ask for, even correcting herself mid-sentence. She's trying to close the gap between what she said and what she thinks you know. That's the invisible shift you need to master. You don't win the truth by confrontation. You win it by changing the environment in which deception feels unsafe. And here's the thing most men never understand. When a woman feels you already see her, she loses the emotional incentive to hide. Because the lie no longer gives her power, it exposes her weakness. So the next time you sense dishonesty, don't react. Don't seek confirmation. Just act like the man who already knows. Watch how quickly her story rearranges itself in real time. The moment she senses you already know, her lies start to collapse on their own. That's the quiet dominance of awareness. No aggression, no threats, just presence. But awareness means nothing if you don't know how to weaponize silence. Men talk to find answers. Women talk to hide them. That's not cynicism. It's behavioral psychology. When emotions run high, men look for logic. Women look for control. And words are their control mechanism. The more they speak, the more they can redirect attention, redefine tone, rebuild safety. That's why the man who learns to be silent becomes the most dangerous one in the room. Silence makes people confront their own truth. It's a mirror, and most can't handle their reflection. Here's what happens inside her mind when you stop talking. Cognitive dissonance. Her brain hates the emptiness. The stillness feels like exposure, as if your silence is stripping away her story. So she fills the gap. With words, with nervous laughter, with unnecessary explanations. That's when the cracks start showing. Imagine this moment. You ask her something once, calm, steady, clear. Then you stop. No sighs, no frowns, no repeated questions. Just presence. The pause stretches longer than she expects. Seconds feel like minutes. She starts to feel your silence pressing against her skin. And then she speaks again, softer, quicker, correcting herself. That's not conversation. That's confession. Most men ruin their leverage by breaking the silence first. They can't handle the discomfort. They think persistence equals strength. It doesn't. Persistence is loud insecurity. Power, in its purest form, is restraint. When you stay quiet, your silence becomes a pressure cooker. It amplifies everything she's trying to hide. The more she senses you're unbothered, the more she feels exposed. Because she can't read you. And that unknown is terrifying to someone who survives by reading emotion. Silence also signals something primal. Emotional detachment. It tells her you're not desperate for reassurance. You're not waiting for her validation. You're simply watching, evaluating, choosing what to believe. That's when she starts revealing the truth. Not because you demanded it, but because your silence forced her to face it. And it's subtle. It's not about making her uncomfortable for sport. It's about letting her run out of scripts. Every manipulative narrative relies on dialogue, on your participation. Once you stop feeding it, it dies. Your silence breaks her performance. Your composure exposes her inconsistencies. Your calmness makes her panic. This is the paradox. You don't get honesty by chasing it. You get it by holding still long enough for it to surface. Because silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of a man who already knows. And when she starts talking too much, that's where the next truth hides, buried inside the overflow of her own words. She suddenly gives you a full timeline, even when you didn't ask. Where she went, who was there, what time she left, what she wore, every small detail delivered with perfect precision. It sounds honest, it sounds open, but it's not clarity, it's camouflage. That's the paradox of deception. Guilty people over-communicate. Because when someone's telling the truth, they speak simply, they answer directly, they don't perform. But when someone is hiding something, they start building a cushion of words, a verbal fog dense enough to make you lose focus. Psychologically, this is called information flooding. It's an unconscious defense mechanism triggered by fear of exposure. When her brain senses threat, the possibility that you've noticed something, it scrambles to build narrative control. The logic is simple. The more context she gives, the less you'll notice the core inconsistency. And it works. On the untrained ear. That's why your role isn't to listen harder. It's to listen smarter. Here's how you do it. When she talks too much, stop tracking the details and start tracking the distance. How far her words are drifting from the question you asked. If her story doubles back, loops around, or adds random justification, she's not explaining. She's distracting. That's your red flag. You'll notice microtells too. Her tone will shift between calm and defensive. She'll smile too long, fill silence with, "You know what I mean," or overshare about things that don't matter. She's not opening up. She's buying time. Every unnecessary detail is an emotional bandage trying to cover a wound she doesn't want you to see. So, instead of confronting her mid-sentence, just nod. Let her finish the monologue. Then repeat her main point back to her, short, cold, stripped of fluff. "So you're saying you just went there, talked for a bit, and came home." You'll feel it, the tension drop in her voice, the hesitation that follows. Because your summary just killed her cushion. The truth has nowhere left to hide. Here's what most men miss. You're not in a conversation. You're in a narrative negotiation. The more she talks, the more information she leaks. But your power is in what you don't respond to. Every time you let her drown in her own words, you give her enough rope to hang the lie herself. So listen differently. Not to what she's saying, to what she's avoiding. If her answers get longer than your question, she's building a wall, not a bridge. Guilt always speaks in paragraphs. Honesty speaks in sentences. And if you can hear that difference, you're already holding the power she's trying to protect. But the real shift happens when you change the frame of the entire conversation. Most men beg for honesty. Leaders command clarity. That single difference changes everything. Because the moment you ask for honesty, you've already surrendered emotional power. You're admitting that your peace depends on her truth, and that gives her the upper hand. She now controls the tempo, the tone, and the tension. You've made her the gatekeeper of your calm. Think about it. When you say, "I just need to know the truth," you're not being strong. You're confessing attachment. You're saying, "My sense of self depends on your validation." And that's the perfect cue for her to tighten her control. But when you shift the frame, everything changes. You stop playing defense and start setting the emotional terms of engagement. Instead of needing the truth, you define the conversation around clarity. You're not begging, you're assessing. You're not reacting, you're observing. You're showing her, silently, that you have the emotional stability to move with or without her cooperation. Say it once, calmly. "I don't need to argue. I just need clarity to move accordingly." That line lands harder than any accusation, because what she hears underneath isn't threat, it's detachment. It tells her, "You no longer control how I feel." That's when the panic starts, because every manipulative dynamic thrives on your emotional dependence. When she realizes she's lost that anchor, she starts reaching. She re-explains, reframes, backtracks, desperate to regain narrative control. You'll notice it in her body language. The pause before she answers, the sudden softness in her tone, the searching eyes trying to gauge how much you know. You haven't raised your voice or changed your expression, but you've changed the entire ecosystem of communication. The psychological principle is called frame control. In any human interaction, the one who defines the frame defines the reality. And when you hold your frame, calm, clear, detached, her manipulative scripts start to fail. She can no longer pull you into her emotional rhythm. You're outside the game, watching it play out. That's why the most powerful men aren't the ones who argue well. They're the ones who refuse to participate in emotional tug-of-war. They don't chase truth. They make truth chase them. When you reach that level, you stop reacting to lies because they can't survive in your presence. You've removed the oxygen of emotional tension. And without that, manipulation suffocates. So remember this. Clarity isn't something you get from her. It's something you create for yourself. Once she senses that, she realizes something deeper. She's not the one holding power anymore. And once you emotionally detach, she has nothing left to hold on to. The more you care, the less honest she becomes. Not because she's cruel, but because your emotions give her a mirror. And she's learned how to use it. Women read emotion like a second language. They feel the tension in your silence, the tremor in your voice, the hesitation behind your words. And once she senses that her truth affects your peace, she learns something dangerous. Your feelings are her leverage. This is where most men lose control. They confuse love with surrender. They think caring deeply means reacting quickly. But emotional exposure isn't connection. It's currency. And once she knows you'll trade peace for answers, she'll never stop testing how far she can push the exchange. Emotional detachment changes that completely. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop depending. You stop letting her emotional storms dictate your internal weather. You become the eye of the hurricane, calm, steady, unmoved, while everything around you spins. Here's what happens next. When you detach, her control mechanisms fail. She can't provoke you with silence. She can't guilt you with tears. She can't manipulate you with confusion. Because now, every emotional tool she's ever used lands flat against your composure, and that stillness terrifies her. Because a woman's emotional influence depends on reaction. When she loses that feedback loop, when her words no longer trigger you, she feels invisible. And invisibility to a woman means loss of power. So she does what every human does when they feel power slipping away. She reaches for truth. She starts explaining herself. She starts clarifying unasked questions. She confesses, not because she wants to, but because she's trying to re-establish connection through honesty. Her truth becomes her peace offering. It's not manipulation anymore, it's instinct. Because when your emotions no longer belong to her, she must rebuild trust the only way she can, by being real. That's why emotional detachment is the ultimate lie detector. It creates silence without saying a word. It makes dishonesty uncomfortable, transparency inevitable. It forces her to face herself, not through confrontation, but through your calm. Detachment is not coldness, it's awareness without attachment. You're not punishing her, you're protecting your peace. You're showing that your value doesn't rise or fall with her approval. And in that moment, something profound happens. She finally sees what you've known all along. When you stop needing the truth, she finally tells it. Because that's not manipulation. It's emotional awareness. It's the quiet mastery of a man who doesn't chase honesty because his presence demands it. You don't get the truth by chasing it. You get it by becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to. Because when you finally understand the psychology behind her words, the safety, the control, the emotional choreography, everything changes. You stop reacting to what she says and start observing what she protects. You stop being led by confusion and start leading through clarity. Let's take a moment to remember what you've learned here. You now understand why she bends the truth, not to deceive, but to maintain control. You've learned that awareness, not aggression, exposes the lie. You've mastered silence, the invisible mirror where truth reveals itself. You can now hear guilt inside over-explanation and calm inside sincerity. You've learned how to shift the entire frame, taking back control of your emotional narrative. And above all, you've seen that the highest form of power is detachment, because nothing exposes truth faster than indifference to it. That's the transformation. You move from the man who demands honesty to the man who commands it. You stop chasing reassurance and you start leading the dynamic. You stop reacting to emotional chaos and you begin to set the temperature of every room you walk into. That's the difference between being emotionally reactive and being emotionally sovereign. Between playing her game and mastering your own. So the next time you sense something off, don't panic, don't press, don't plead. Just breathe. Watch. Stay silent. Because she'll either tell you the truth or she'll expose it trying to hide it. You don't force the truth out of a woman. You evolve into the man she can't lie to. And if this message hit you, don't just watch, learn, subscribe, comment your story below, and share this with a man who still chases answers instead of control. Because in this game, truth isn't spoken, it's revealed. The strongest men aren't the loudest. They're the ones who understand the quiet psychology behind attraction, trust, and power. Every woman operates on emotional codes most men ignore, but once you decode them, you stop chasing and start choosing. In this video, I'll show you the 7 secrets women never want men to know. How they think, what they fear, and why they test your control. Stay here if you're done guessing and ready to become the kind of man no woman can manipulate. Before we get into it, understand this. This video isn't about exposing women. It's about revealing the emotional architecture that shapes every connection you've ever had. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll start recognizing the hidden systems behind every smile, every pause, every change in tone. This isn't theory. It's fieldwork, built on patterns women use every day to navigate love, safety, and control. The goal isn't to distrust them, but to understand them so deeply that you stop reacting and start responding. Because power in relationships doesn't come from force. It comes from awareness. So let's begin with the first truth, the one most men overlook because they think privacy means loyalty. It doesn't. Here's what really happens behind the scenes when she tells her friends about you. Number 1. Women talk more than you think. You might believe the things that happen between you and her are private. You might even think that what you say in confidence, or what you do behind closed doors, stays sealed between 2 people. But that's not how female communication works. When a woman trusts her circle, she doesn't just share feelings, she transfers experiences. Women connect through emotional exchange. It's how they process the world. When something makes her laugh, hurt, or feel powerful, she won't keep it to herself. It becomes a story. And in that story, you play a part, willingly or not. For men, silence is bonding. You respect privacy as a form of loyalty. But for women, bonding means narration. Sharing details is how she validates her emotions and earns empathy from her friends. It's not betrayal. It's social survival. The moment she tells her girlfriends about what happened, the argument, the date, the affection, the tension, she's not just gossiping. She's building her version of truth. Every word she shares shapes how she sees you, how she justifies staying, or how she explains leaving. That's why your privacy doesn't exist the same way hers does. What happens between you and her rarely stays between you and her. It's filtered, reinterpreted, and often discussed until it feels emotionally complete. Understanding this changes the game. When you realize her stories are part of how she processes intimacy, you stop reacting like a betrayed man and start thinking like a composed one. The goal isn't to silence her, it's to manage what version of yourself she gets to talk about. Don't overshare, don't perform. Let your actions speak in silence. When she describes you to her friends, the picture she paints depends on the behavior you repeat, not the words you defend. If you want your story told with respect, give her nothing chaotic to retell. The more predictable your emotions, the more stable her narrative becomes. Because in her world, storytelling is bonding, and in yours, self-control is the only privacy left. Number 2, She lies about her past, not to deceive, but to protect her image. Every man believes he wants honesty, until he hears the truth. Then suddenly, he prefers a version that feels easier to digest. Women understand that dynamic better than anyone. That's why she won't tell you everything. Not because she's malicious, but because she's protecting how you see her. A woman's sense of worth is deeply tied to perception. From a young age, she's been trained to manage appearances, to be desirable but not too open, emotional but not unstable, experienced but not tainted. That duality forces her to curate her story. When she talks about her past, she edits. Not to hide reality, but to create safety. If she once loved a man who broke her, she might downplay it to avoid your judgment. If she's had experiences you'd label as too much, she'll soften them to avoid being seen as less than. It's not deception. It's emotional self-preservation. Behind every omission is a fear, the fear of being reduced to her mistakes. Men often underestimate how punishing social judgment can be for women. A man's past is called experience. A woman's past is called baggage. That's the imbalance she's navigating. So, she protects her image, not out of vanity, but survival. She hides the chapters she fears you'll use against her. And the more you demand transparency without emotional maturity, the less she'll ever tell you. But here's what most men don't realize. When a woman hides her past, it doesn't mean she's hiding danger. It means she's testing your capacity to handle truth. If you respond with calm and curiosity instead of judgment, she begins to trust you. That's when the real story surfaces. You don't uncover honesty by interrogating. You earn it by safety. So instead of asking, "What did you do before me?" ask, "Who did you become because of it?" That's where the truth lives. Her silence isn't mystery, it's defense. And when you learn to listen between the lines, you'll understand more about her than she ever dares to say aloud. Number 3, she wants you to chase her even when she likes you. It's one of the oldest paradoxes in attraction. The woman who wants you won't always show it. She'll flirt, withdraw, reappear, and test your reactions, not to confuse you, but to study you. The chase isn't about distance, it's about discovery. When a woman likes you, she enters a state of emotional alertness. Her instincts scan for consistency, patience, and dominance. Not aggression, but emotional steadiness. She wants to see if your interest has structure, or if it collapses under pressure. That's why she hesitates to be direct. The hesitation is the test. The chase is her way of asking, are you leading or are you reacting? If you rush toward her, she pulls back. If you pull away completely, she assumes disinterest. The balance lies in controlled pursuit, curiosity without attachment, confidence without desperation. For women, the chase is an emotional theater. Every delayed reply, every brief silence, every look that lingers longer than it should, it's all a study in power. She enjoys that rhythm because it reminds her she's desired yet not owned. And here's what most men get wrong. They believe the chase ends once she says yes. It doesn't. The emotional game resets. What she really wants is to feel that your attention remains intentional, not automatic. When the chase dies, so does her excitement. The truth is simple. Women fall for men who make them feel chosen, not captured. The difference is in energy. A man who chooses calmly radiates security. A man who chases desperately radiates fear. She senses that instantly. So how do you respond? You don't run faster. You slow down. You let her see you're capable of desire without losing direction. That calm confidence disarms her because she realizes you're not trying to win her approval. You're assessing compatibility. She doesn't want the chase to end. She wants to be reminded she's worth chasing. Master that rhythm, and you'll never have to play games again. Because once you understand her patterns, you'll realize the real chase isn't about catching her. It's about proving you won't lose yourself while trying. Number 4, she dates to elevate, emotionally, socially, or financially. A woman rarely chooses a man who makes her feel smaller. Even when she loves deeply, her instinct still seeks elevation, in energy, in stability, in growth. That's not manipulation. That's evolution. For centuries, women's survival depended on choosing wisely. Safety, protection, and social mobility were the invisible currencies of attraction. Those instincts didn't disappear with modern freedom. They evolved into something more subtle: emotional selection. She's not just asking, do I love him? She's asking, do I rise when I'm with him? This is why she loses interest in stagnation. When you stop building, she stops believing. It's not about money alone, though security is part of it. It's about momentum. Women are drawn to direction. A man who knows where he's going gives her something powerful: emotional gravity. Men often confuse this with greed, but in truth, she's measuring alignment, not wealth, but potential. If you've stopped growing, if your ambition died quietly, she senses it. And that's when her emotional investment begins to fade. She doesn't leave immediately. She detaches in layers, first emotionally, then sexually, then socially. Her body might still be present, but her loyalty has moved ahead, toward a future that feels safer and more certain. So when a woman dates up, it's not always about status, it's about energy. She's attracted to what reflects who she wants to become. Your vision, your discipline, your calm under pressure, that's the security she values most. The danger for men is complacency. Thinking love will hold her when growth stops is a costly illusion. Attraction fades when leadership weakens. The truth: a woman doesn't want to carry you. She wants to feel carried by your purpose. That's not control, it's chemistry, the ancient exchange between masculine direction and feminine trust. If a woman outgrows you emotionally or socially, she disconnects quietly, not out of cruelty, but necessity. You can't hold a woman who's still rising if you've chosen to stand still. She doesn't want your love if your life is stuck. Keep evolving, not to impress her, but because the man who keeps growing never fears being replaced. Number 5, her biggest fear isn't losing love, it's being used. Every woman who's been hurt carries an invisible scar. It's not always heartbreak that shapes her, but humiliation, the memory of giving too much and getting too little in return. What she fears most isn't the end of love. It's the feeling of being disposable. When she opens up to you, it's rarely instant. It's layered. She tests your patience, your intention, your consistency. Not because she enjoys the game, but because she's watching for safety. She needs to know, can I trust this man with my softness? Behind her hesitation is history. The moment she let her guard down once, she was met with distance. The moment she believed in forever, someone treated her as temporary. So now she hides her tenderness behind sarcasm, independence, or silence. It's not manipulation. It's armor. You might think she's difficult, that she's demanding too much reassurance. But what she's really saying is simple. Show me I'm not just another story you'll forget. Men often misinterpret emotional defense as drama. But the truth is, her guarded behavior is a survival instinct, her way of controlling pain before it controls her again. If you want to understand her, stop taking her caution personally. When she questions you, it's not an attack, it's a measure of self-protection. She's not trying to trap you, she's trying not to lose herself again. Her tests aren't about ego, they're about fear. And that fear runs deeper than rejection. It's the fear of being used and discarded like she never mattered. You can break through it only with consistency. Not promises, not poetry. Consistency. Emotional reliability is the new luxury most women can't find. If she gave you her body, her trust, or her vulnerability, and you vanished, you didn't just disappear. You confirmed her deepest fear, that she was never more than a moment. That's why she hesitates now. That's why she's cautious. And if you ever earn her softness again, treat it as a privilege, not proof of conquest. Because once she feels safe, she gives everything. But the day she feels used, she'll never return. Number 6, she scans men instinctively. Before she even hears you speak, she's already read you. The way you walk into a room, how you stand, where your eyes settle, it all tells a story. You might think attraction begins with words, but for women, it often starts with observation. This isn't vanity, it's biology. Long before modern dating apps or social rules, women relied on instinct to assess safety and strength. Their brains evolved to scan faces, posture, and micro-expressions to decide, can I trust him? Can I follow him? Can he protect me, emotionally or physically? That reflex still runs deep. When she looks at you, she's not just admiring your looks, she's reading data, your energy, confidence, composure. She studies how you move through space. Do you look rushed or grounded, defensive or calm, present or distracted? Even your smallest gestures speak. How you hold eye contact, how you breathe, how you react when interrupted, these details shape her subconscious decision before you even open your mouth. Yes, she notices your clothes, but what really draws her is the feeling you project. Confidence without arrogance. Focus without tension. Masculinity that isn't loud, but steady. The funny part? Most men try to impress through what they say, while women decide how they feel around you, long before the conversation begins. You can't fake energy. Your body tells on you. So instead of obsessing over words, refine your presence. Slow your movements. Maintain awareness of your surroundings. Stand like a man who belongs wherever he is, not like someone waiting for permission. This isn't about dominance. It's about stability. Women read posture the way men read tone. The straighter you stand, the clearer your value appears. And remember, her scan isn't always sexual. Sometimes she's simply categorizing you. Threat, toy, or potential. She may smile, look away, or stay neutral, but that quick assessment is her instinct doing its job. You can't stop her from scanning, but you can decide what she sees. Because in the silent seconds before words are spoken, she's already made a decision, not about what you have, but about what kind of man you are. 7. Yes, women cheat, but it's about power, not pleasure. When a man cheats, it's often impulsive. When a woman does, it's calculated. And by the time she crosses that line, something inside her has already shifted. Her body might arrive second, her mind left long before. For men, infidelity is usually about novelty. For women, it's about imbalance. She doesn't betray for excitement. She betrays to reclaim control. Cheating, for her, isn't rebellion. It's a response. It begins quietly. A woman feels unseen, unheard, or emotionally dismissed. She starts shrinking inside her own relationship, trying to resurrect connection. But when every attempt meets neglect or arrogance, something breaks. She no longer seeks validation. She seeks leverage. That's when another man's attention becomes oxygen. Not because he's better, but because he listens. In that moment, he becomes a mirror reflecting the value she forgot she had. It's not love. It's escape from invisibility. By the time she acts on it, the decision isn't about him. It's about herself. It's her way of saying, I can still affect the world around me. I can still matter. That's what makes it dangerous. When women cheat, it's rarely physical. It's psychological. They do it cleanly, quietly, with precision, because they're not chasing passion. They're reclaiming significance. Men often ask, how could she do that? The answer is simple. She stopped being afraid to lose you. When you became predictable, dismissive, or careless, she realized the emotional power in indifference. That's when she turned it on you. Here's the hardest truth. When she stops arguing, she's not peaceful. She's gone. When she stops asking where you are, she already knows. When she stops crying and starts smiling again, she's rewriting her story. And you're no longer in it. A woman's revenge is calm. And that's what makes it devastating. You can't control her choices, but you can control the space that breeds them. Don't lead with fear, lead with presence. Connection isn't maintained by possession, it's maintained by attention. Because once a woman feels emotionally invisible, she'll find a way to be seen, even if it means walking through fire to feel alive again. You've just heard 7 secrets women don't want men to know. But this wasn't about exposing women. It was about exposing your blind spots, the patterns that keep you reacting instead of understanding. Every man wants to lead, yet few understand what they're leading. You can't win a game if you don't know its rules. And the truth is, women have been playing on a psychological field you've barely learned to see. They don't hide these truths because they hate men. They hide them because emotional power is their armor. And the moment a man reacts with anger, defensiveness, or ego, he proves why she needed that armor in the first place. So here's what you take away. When she talks too much, don't panic. Control what you give her to talk about. When she hides her past, listen for her pain instead of judging her story. When she makes you chase, don't sprint. Move with calm intention. When she dates to elevate, don't beg. Rise. When she guards herself, be consistent. When she scans you, embody steadiness. And when she pulls away, don't fight for power. Build presence. Understanding women isn't about control. It's about awareness. Because once you see the emotional mechanics behind attraction, manipulation, and connection, you stop being a pawn in her game and start mastering your own. This is the truth no one tells men. Women don't make you weak. Your reactions do. Every time you lose composure, you hand over power. Every time you stay centered, you take it back. Now ask yourself, after hearing all this, what will you do differently? Will you keep trying to decode women, or will you start decoding yourself? If this message hit you deeper than you expected, subscribe. Not to flatter me, but to stop living in confusion. Every week, I'll teach you how to understand women, not to control them, but to control yourself. Because understanding women isn't power. Controlling your response to them is. Here's the truth. Women play an emotional game most men don't even know they're part of. Every reaction, every test, every silence, it all has meaning. But men lose, again and again, because they can't see the rules. What if you could? What if you could read the emotions behind the words, the patterns behind the drama, and the truth behind her tests? In this video, you'll learn the top 7 female weaknesses every man needs to know. The hidden emotional triggers that decide whether she respects you or resents you. Miss them, and you'll keep losing ground. Understand them, and you'll own the frame. Quietly, confidently, completely. Most men think control means dominance. It doesn't. Control means emotional awareness, the ability to stay calm when everything around you gets chaotic. Once you understand that, you stop playing defense in relationships and start leading the dynamic. This isn't about fixing women. It's about upgrading how you move, think, and respond. Because emotional leadership isn't soft, it's strategy. If you're ready to start leading instead of reacting, subscribe and like this video. Then write in the comments, "From today, I lead with composure." That's your declaration of strength. Keep watching, because what comes next reveals the emotional foundation every man must understand before he can win her respect and trust. Number 1. Emotional sensitivity. The core language of men often see a woman's emotions as unpredictable, fragile, or even exhausting. But that's the first mistake. What most men call emotional is actually communication in a language they were never taught to understand. Women process life through feeling first and logic second. It isn't weakness, it's wiring. Emotional sensitivity is not fragility. It's intuition. It's her radar for connection, her way of reading the world beyond words. When a woman reacts strongly to something that seems small to you, it's because her emotions translate reality differently. A man hears words, a woman feels meaning. When she says, "You never listen," she's not complaining about one missed sentence. She's expressing that her emotional signal isn't being received. And if that signal goes unanswered too long, connection starts to die, no matter how much you think you're doing everything right. Most men respond with logic. They try to fix, explain, or defend. But logic doesn't calm emotion. Presence does. When she's upset, she doesn't need a solution. She needs resonance. She needs to feel that her emotions don't bounce off a wall of indifference. Listening without interrupting, keeping your tone grounded, acknowledging her feelings. That's how emotional fluency works. You don't surrender your frame, you steady it so hers can find balance. A man who learns this gains something few ever master: emotional leadership. It's not about giving in to emotion, it's about guiding it. When she feels you can understand her inner world without judging it, she begins to trust your direction. Her guard drops. The chaos you once feared becomes predictable rhythm. Think of it this way. Emotion is her native language. Logic is yours. The man who can translate between the two becomes rare, magnetic, and deeply respected. Emotional sensitivity is not her weakness. It's the access point to her loyalty. The moment you stop seeing her feelings as obstacles and start seeing them as data, everything changes. She no longer resists you. She follows your calm. And in that moment, you stop reacting like every other man and start leading like the one she's been waiting to trust. Number 2, need for attention. The currency of connection. Attention is not vanity, it's value. For women, attention is how love speaks without words. The emotional currency that tells her, "You matter here." Every woman, no matter how confident or independent, wants to feel seen by the man she trusts. When that attention fades, even subtly, her heart senses distance long before her mind does. Most men misunderstand this completely. They think attention means compliments, gifts, or constant flattery. But that's surface level. Real attention is energy. It's presence. It's how you listen, how you notice, how your focus rests on her, even when the world is pulling you in 100 directions. You can sit right next to her and still make her feel invisible if your mind is elsewhere. Presence is the difference between being physically there and emotionally available. Neglect doesn't always appear as cruelty. Sometimes it hides in silence, in distraction, in routine. When she starts to feel invisible, she doesn't always say it directly. Instead, she'll test your awareness, a change in tone, a quiet withdrawal, a sudden coldness. Many men respond with confusion or frustration, asking, "What did I do wrong?" The truth is simple. She's not angry. She's unseen. Her silence is a question. Do I still matter in your world? To a woman, attention equals validation. It's her proof that you're still tuned into the connection you built together, and that validation doesn't require grand gestures, just mindful ones. A text that says, "Thinking of you," a moment of eye contact that lingers instead of drifting to your phone, a simple acknowledgement of her effort or mood. Small, consistent signals of awareness build emotional safety faster than any speech about love. When men ignore this, distance grows. She stops opening up, not because she's changed, but because the channel between you has gone quiet. Attention is the signal that keeps that channel alive. It doesn't weaken your masculinity. It amplifies it. A man who can hold focus in a world full of distraction is a rare presence. A woman who feels seen becomes your ally. One who feels unseen becomes your mirror, reflecting your absence back at you. Master the art of attention, and you master emotional presence. Because in the end, love doesn't disappear overnight. It fades quietly, the moment you stop looking at her and start looking through her. Number 3. Fear of rejection, the silent driver. Behind her tests. Every woman carries one quiet fear that shapes how she loves. The fear of being emotionally replaced. It isn't always visible. Sometimes it hides behind confidence, sarcasm, or a calm smile. But deep down, that fear drives many of her reactions, especially the ones men misread as tests. A woman doesn't test a man because she wants conflict. She tests to confirm emotional safety. Every emotional test is an unspoken question. Can I trust you not to disappear when I'm vulnerable? When a man begins to pull away, gets inconsistent, or starts acting distracted, her instincts flare. She doesn't consciously choose to overreact. Her emotions simply go on alert, searching for proof that she's still valued. The signs are easy to miss. She may become defensive, question your intentions, or seek constant reassurance. What looks like neediness is often a defense mechanism. Her mind replays patterns from the past. Times she opened her heart and got rejected, dismissed, or replaced. To her, distance equals danger. Here's where most men fail the test. They take her reaction personally, get irritated, or accuse her of being dramatic. They pull away to teach her a lesson, not realizing that withdrawal is exactly what confirms her deepest fear. You don't calm fear by retreating. You calm it through consistency. A strong man doesn't react. He reassures through action. His tone stays steady. His words match his behavior. He doesn't argue her fear away. He makes it irrelevant by showing dependability. That's the power of masculine consistency. It speaks louder than any promise. When you handle her emotional tests with calm authority, something remarkable happens. The fear dissolves. The tension fades. She no longer feels the need to question your loyalty because your steadiness becomes the answer. The mature frame is simple. She's not trying to control you. She's trying to confirm you. Understand that, and you transform her anxiety into trust. Reject that truth, and you feed the very insecurity you hate. When a woman feels irreplaceable, she stops overcompensating. When she feels secure in your emotional presence, her tests end on their own. And that's when real connection begins. Not through dominance or appeasement, but through unwavering steadiness. In her world, reliability is the highest form of attraction. Number 4. Desire for security. Her deepest instinct. Beneath every strong, independent woman lies a quiet need that never goes away. The desire for security. Not financial, not material, but emotional. The kind of security that comes from knowing the man beside her won't collapse when life gets heavy. It's not about control or protection. It's about consistency, direction, and steadiness. Those are the foundations on which her trust is built. Women are wired to sense stability. It's an ancient instinct. In every generation, survival depended on recognizing who could endure chaos without losing focus. That instinct still lives in her today. When she feels your composure, your discipline, your sense of purpose, she relaxes, she softens. But when she senses instability, emotional volatility, inconsistency, or lack of direction, her instincts turn defensive. She starts to question not your love, but your leadership. A man's frame is tested most during moments of uncertainty. When plans fall apart, when pressure rises, when emotions run high, that's when she looks at you differently. She doesn't need you to have all the answers. She needs to see that you won't break, because emotional steadiness to her equals safety, and safety is the soil where her affection grows. Too many men mistake control for strength. They try to dominate when what she really needs is stability. They raise their voice when they should lower their energy. They argue to prove power instead of embodying peace. The truth is simple. She doesn't crave your authority. She craves your reliability. When the world spins, she wants to know your focus won't. Security doesn't mean perfection. You can fail, make mistakes, lose a battle, as long as your integrity stays intact. Your word must mean something. Your direction must stay clear. The moment a man becomes unpredictable, a woman's peace disappears. Her behavior changes not because she wants drama, but because uncertainty feels unsafe. When you give her emotional security, her whole nature transforms. Her guard drops. Her nurturing side surfaces. She becomes cooperative, affectionate, and trusting. You don't earn that with promises. You earn it with presence. So remember this. Consistency builds attraction faster than intensity ever could. When you become her calm in the storm, her energy naturally aligns with yours. That's not control. That's leadership. And that's the kind of strength a woman never walks away from. Number 5, emotional overthinking. Her mind's defense mechanism. When a woman starts overthinking, most men assume she's being irrational. They see endless questions, repeated worries, or small details blown out of proportion and think she's creating problems out of nothing. But what she's really doing is protecting herself from emotional uncertainty. Overthinking isn't chaos. It's a defense mechanism built from experience. Women read emotion the way men read logic. Every word, tone, pause, and silence becomes data. When something changes, a shift in your mood, less engagement, shorter responses, her intuition notices. Her mind starts scanning for meaning, connecting dots, trying to make sense of the emotional signal she's receiving. She's not obsessed with control. She's seeking clarity. She wants to feel safe again. To men, this process looks exhausting, but to her, it's survival. Somewhere in her past, inconsistency taught her that safety can disappear without warning. So now her mind replays conversations, analyzes messages, revisits moments, not to irritate you, but to find reassurance she can't directly ask for. Her brain is trying to solve what her heart fears. This is where strong men separate themselves from reactive ones. The reactive man gets frustrated, says, "You're overthinking again," and shuts down. That only proves her fear right, that she's alone in her emotions. The grounded man does the opposite. He listens calmly. He doesn't try to fix or fight her thoughts. He reassures through tone, eye contact, and consistency. He speaks clearly and honestly, removing confusion before it turns into anxiety. Sometimes the best way to stop overthinking isn't words, it's behavior. Show up when you say you will. Keep your tone steady. Be where your presence is expected. Over time, her mind stops searching for danger because it learns to trust your rhythm. When she revisits old conversations or needs to talk things through, it's not a personal attack. It's emotional maintenance. The goal isn't to silence her mind, it's to calm it. When she feels safe in your presence, her thoughts quiet naturally. Remember, overthinking is what happens when clarity is missing. Your calm creates that clarity. So instead of reacting to her storm, become her stillness. Because the man who stays composed when her emotions spin doesn't just win her peace, he earns her deepest respect. In her world, that steadiness isn't just attractive, it's rare. Number 6, validation craving, her emotional fuel tank. Every woman, no matter how confident she appears, needs validation. Not flattery, not performance, real grounded acknowledgement, the kind that tells her, "I see you, and what you bring into this relationship matters. Emotional validation isn't a luxury for her, it's oxygen. It sustains the bond when logic can't. Men often underestimate this need. They assume validation means endless praise or constant reassurance, so they avoid it to stay masculine. But that's a misunderstanding. Validation doesn't weaken your authority. It amplifies it. Because a woman who feels valued stops seeking proof that she's enough. Her energy calms, her loyalty strengthens. When validation is missing, subtle signs appear. She starts asking more questions. Do you still love me? Do I look okay? She changes her tone, her style, or her attitude. Not for attention, but for confirmation. Her mind is simply trying to refill a tank that's running low. She's not needy. She's emotionally underfed. And ignoring that need only widens the distance between you. True validation isn't about compliments. It's about recognition. It's saying, I notice what you do. I appreciate your effort. I respect your presence. It's a simple line at the right moment that resets her entire emotional state. When you validate with intention, her defenses drop. Her feminine energy thrives on feeling appreciated for both who she is and how she gives. Balance is key. Too little validation breeds insecurity. Too much creates dependency. The right dose builds stability, the kind that keeps love alive without constant reassurance. You don't have to say it every hour. You just have to mean it when you do. And there's something powerful in how men deliver validation. When it comes from calm confidence, not desperation, it feels real. A man who values without worshipping, who appreciates without losing himself, creates emotional gravity. She feels safe in his admiration because it's grounded in respect, not approval seeking. Remember, validation is emotional maintenance. It's how you keep her heart tuned to the relationship instead of wandering into doubt. When you consistently show her that her presence has meaning, she stops questioning her place in your life. A woman who feels seen becomes peaceful. A woman who feels unseen begins to fade. If you want loyalty, appreciation, and emotional harmony, learn this truth. Validation isn't manipulation. It's leadership, and the man who masters it never has to chase peace. He creates it. Number 7. Struggle with accountability. The final test of leadership. This is where emotional maturity separates men from boys. The struggle with accountability isn't just a female weakness, it's a human one. But for women, it often takes a unique shape. When emotions run high, logic takes a back seat. Her instinct to protect her feelings can sometimes override her ability to take responsibility. To her, being wrong can feel the same as being unsafe. That's why arguments often go in circles. You try to stick to the facts, but she's responding to feelings. You're talking about what happened. She's talking about how it made her feel. The harder you push your logic, the more her emotions fight back. It's not manipulation. It's defense. When she feels attacked, she defends her emotions first and her reasoning later. The secret isn't to overpower or out-argue her. It's to lead with calm authority. When conflict hits, your tone is your leverage. You can escalate the storm or absorb it. The man who raises his voice loses control. The man who steadies his energy takes command. Accountability doesn't grow in confrontation. It grows in emotional safety. She will only reflect once she feels she won't be shamed for her mistake. The best way to invite accountability is to model it. Admit your part first. Take ownership of your tone, your timing, your words. Not to take blame for her actions, but to show strength through humility. That disarms her defensiveness. When she sees you hold yourself accountable without losing composure, she starts mirroring it. Emotional leadership is contagious. You can't demand maturity. You invite it by embodying it. That's what real leadership looks like in a relationship. It's not about proving who's right. It's about protecting the bond from ego. When you stay grounded while she reacts emotionally, you shift the entire dynamic. You stop competing and start leading. Over time, this creates a quiet transformation. She learns that reflection doesn't mean weakness. She learns that admitting fault won't cost her respect. She learns that calm accountability is power. And that shift changes everything. Arguments fade faster, communication becomes honest, and trust deepens. A woman may resist accountability at first, but a man who remains steady through it teaches her emotional discipline without a single lecture. Because in the end, strength isn't about control. It's about composure. Lead with it, and you'll never have to chase respect. She'll give it freely because she feels safe in your steadiness. You've just walked through the 7 emotional patterns that define how women think, love, and respond. The sensitivities that confuse most men and destroy most relationships. But now you see the truth. They were never weaknesses. They were emotional codes. Once you understand them, everything shifts. You no longer see emotion as chaos. You see it as communication. You no longer fight what you don't understand. You lead it, not by control, but by clarity. Because real power in a relationship doesn't come from dominance. It comes from emotional fluency. From being the man who can stand calm in the middle of a storm and still make her feel safe. Think about it. Emotional sensitivity isn't drama, it's her language. Attention isn't vanity, it's her validation. Fear of rejection isn't manipulation, it's a plea for safety. Security isn't control, it's peace. Overthinking isn't madness, it's protection. Validation isn't ego, it's fuel. And accountability? That's where both of you grow stronger together. Each of these truths is a layer of understanding, and when you put them together, they form the foundation of emotional leadership. The kind of strength that doesn't react, it responds. The kind that doesn't break under pressure, it guides. This is where real masculinity lives. Not in how loud you speak, but in how calm you stay. Not in how much you demand, but in how clearly you lead. Because when you master emotional awareness, you no longer chase peace, you become it. If this opened your eyes, act on it. Subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with a man who needs to hear it. Because the truth is simple. Emotional strength isn't taught in schools. It's built through awareness, reflection, and practice. You can't control how women feel. You can't predict every reaction. But you can master how you respond. And that's where true power begins. Not over her, but within you. What's worse than a woman who leaves you? A woman who stays, but secretly hates you. You'll feel it in the way she talks to you, laughs at you, or simply looks past you like you don't exist. She'll still sleep beside you, still say, love you, still play the part. But behind that calm face is quiet contempt. This isn't love dying. It's disrespect blooming. And if you don't see it early, she'll turn you into a version of yourself that you won't even recognize. This isn't paranoia. It's psychology. Because when respect dies, love is already gone. Stay here. I'll show you the 8 subtle signs that prove when her affection has turned into disgust, and how to recognize it before it destroys you. Every man thinks he'll notice when she starts to hate him. But women don't show hate directly. They code it. It's in the tone, the body language, the delayed responses, the "I forgot." It's subtle because it's designed to confuse you, to make you second-guess your instincts. That's the genius of covert disrespect. It makes you the unreliable narrator of your own story, but not after today. If you're ready to decode what she really means when she says, "Relax, I was just joking," hit subscribe. Then comment, "Decoded," because you're about to see how contempt hides behind laughter. and how one harmless moment can redefine the power dynamic forever. Number 1. The public joke that cuts deep. It starts in the smallest moments. A dinner with friends, a story you tell with genuine warmth. You're halfway through your sentence when she interrupts with a laugh that doesn't include you. Her eyes flick toward the table, her tone playful on the surface but poisoned underneath. "Oh, he always does that," she says, smiling. It's almost cute how bad he is with details. The people around you laugh, but it's not a real laugh. It's the kind that trembles, the laugh people use when something uncomfortable just happened. You sit there, feeling that familiar heat rise in your chest. You try to smile, maybe even make a small joke to brush it off. But inside, something sharp twists. This isn't humor, it's hierarchy. A real joke brings people closer. It's shared, mutual, alive. But when you become the punchline, what's happening isn't bonding, it's positioning. She's showing everyone at that table, including you, where you stand. Beneath her. Psychologically, this is called public framing, the act of lowering someone's status in a social setting to reclaim control. It's not accidental, it's a subtle form of power assertion. By laughing at you, she redefines you. By defending herself with, "I'm just teasing," she gaslights you into silence. You start doubting your reaction, telling yourself maybe you're too sensitive. That's exactly the trap. Because she knows what she's doing. She knows that in the male mind, the word sensitive is poison. She uses it like a leash, pulling you back every time you try to call it out. Here's the truth she won't say out loud. A woman who loves you protects your image in public. A woman who secretly despises you exposes it for sport. When her laughter feels like a blade, understand, she's not being funny. She's declaring dominance. If she laughs at your expense, it's not a joke. It's a message. Number 2, the forgetfulness that isn't forgetful. She says she forgot. The dry cleaning you needed for your presentation, the dinner plans you made weeks ago, the simple request you mentioned yesterday. She forgets your needs, but somehow remembers her own perfectly. The brunch with her friends, the skincare order, the call she promised to return. You start to notice the pattern. Her memory isn't fragile. It's selective. And the things she forgets always have one thing in common. You. This isn't absent-mindedness. It's a quiet rebellion. A strategy so subtle you can't even call it out without sounding petty. Because when you do, she smiles, shrugs, and says, "Relax, I just forgot." No, she didn't. She just didn't care enough to remember. Psychologically, this is called passive control, a form of manipulation where incompetence is used as a weapon. By forgetting, she forces you to take responsibility for both of you. You pick up the slack. You double-check everything. You become the parent in your own relationship. And that's exactly how she wants it. Because when you're managing her, you're no longer standing as her equal. You're performing service. You stop expecting partnership and start accepting excuses. The damage is slow, almost invisible. Each "I forgot" chips away at your trust until the dynamic shifts completely. You stop asking her for help. You start doing everything yourself. And when you finally confront her, she accuses you of being controlling. It's the perfect trap. She forgets, you fix. She fails, you apologize. You carry the weight, and she gets to feel free. Here's the brutal truth. Forgetfulness is never random. It's a mirror of respect. And if she never forgets what benefits her, but always forgets what matters to you, it's not her memory that's failing. It's her regard for you that's gone missing. Number 3, the eye roll that says everything. It's the smallest gesture, so quick you almost miss it. You're talking about a new idea, something that excites you. You're sharing a plan, a dream, a little victory. And she sighs, looks away, rolls her eyes. No words, no fight, just that micro-expression that speaks louder than 1,000 insults. In that second, something inside you stirs, confusion, hurt, maybe even shame. You weren't looking for validation, you were looking for connection, but what you got was contempt. Here's what most men don't realize. Contempt isn't anger. It's disgust. Anger still cares. Anger means you matter enough to argue with. Contempt means she's already decided you're beneath her. Psychologist John Gottman, the man who studied thousands of marriages, called contempt the single strongest predictor of divorce. Why? Because it erases equality. When contempt enters the room, respect quietly leaves. An eye roll isn't just an eye roll. It's her subconscious telling you you're not worth engaging with. It's the body rejecting your words like a bad taste. You might think it's nothing. You might tell yourself she's just tired, but the body never lies. Even when her mouth says I'm fine, her expression betrays the truth. She's no longer emotionally invested. The tragedy is, this moment doesn't happen once. It repeats over dinners, conversations, arguments, until one day you stop talking. You stop sharing your thoughts, your wins, your curiosity. Because you already know how she'll react. And that's how contempt kills intimacy. Not with shouting, but with silence. Here's the hidden truth. A woman can fake affection. She can fake laughter. She can fake pleasure. But her body will always reveal contempt. When her eyes roll, her love is gone. All that's left is tolerance. And tolerance is the slowest form of rejection. Number 4. The celebration she can't share. You walk through the door, heart still racing from good news. Maybe a promotion, a breakthrough, a small victory that finally makes you feel seen. You expect warmth, a spark of pride. Maybe just a simple, I'm proud of you. But she barely looks up. Oh, that's nice, she says, her tone flat. Then, without missing a beat, she changes the subject. At first, you tell yourself she's distracted, that she's tired, that she didn't mean it that way. But deep down, you feel the shift. The joy inside you fades before it even has a chance to breathe. You see, indifference is not neutral. It's contempt, disguised as calm. Psychologically, this is called emotional withdrawal, when a partner detaches from your success because your growth threatens their position. A healthy woman feels pride when her man rises. She feels stronger because his strength adds to hers. But a resentful one feels diminished. Your win reminds her of what she's not achieving. So instead of celebrating, she minimizes. Well, it's about time, she might say. Or worse, she redirects. That's great. Anyway, did you take out the trash? That moment isn't random. It's symbolic. It's her quietly pulling away from the partnership, turning we into me. Because the truth is, people celebrate what they value. And when she can't celebrate you, she no longer values you. The danger here isn't her silence, it's how it reshapes you. You stop sharing good news. You learn to shrink your joy. You condition yourself to downplay everything you're proud of, until you forget what pride even feels like. But listen closely. Love doesn't envy. Respect doesn't compete. If she can't be happy for you, she's already emotionally gone. Here's the hidden truth. When a woman can't celebrate you, she no longer sees you as part of her story. And a woman who can't stand your light will eventually try to dim it. Number 5. The silence that punishes. It doesn't start with shouting, it starts with silence. One night, after an argument that wasn't even serious, she shuts down completely. No eye contact, no response. Just air thick with distance. You try to talk, nothing. You apologize, nothing. You walk through your own home like an unwelcome guest. This is not peace. This is punishment. Psychologically, it's called stonewalling, but in reality, It's a form of control. Because silence is not the absence of communication, it's a weaponized version of it. When someone who knows you intimately decides to withhold their voice, they're not creating space, they're creating power. You start to feel small. You replay every word, wondering what you did wrong. You apologize for things you didn't do, just to break the silence. But every time you give in, the dynamic shifts further. She learns that silence makes you bend. What's happening in your brain during these moments isn't weakness. Neuroscience shows that prolonged emotional isolation triggers the same neural pain centers as physical injury. That's why this silence hurts, because your body literally interprets it as rejection. She knows this instinctively. She knows you'll chase her. And that's why she uses silence, not as retreat, but as domination. Understand this. When love turns into control, every word withheld becomes a leash around your emotions. A woman who respects you will argue, debate, even challenge you, because she still wants resolution. But a woman who silently erases you has already decided your feelings don't matter. The silence doesn't heal. It hollows. It teaches you that peace means surrender, that calm means submission. Here's the truth she hides behind that blank stare. Silence isn't serenity. It's psychological warfare. When she chooses to go quiet, it's not because she's done fighting. It's because she's already won. Number 6. The sarcasm that cuts like a blade. It sounds like humor. It even looks like humor. But deep down, you know something's off. Every conversation starts light and ends with you feeling smaller. You put on a new shirt, feeling good about yourself. She glances up and smirks. Wow. Bold choice. You make a suggestion for dinner, and she responds, because your taste is always so refined. You laugh it off, at first, because she always has an escape route ready. Relax, I'm just kidding. That's not a joke. That's a dagger wrapped in velvet. Psychologically, sarcasm is one of the most efficient tools of covert aggression. It's how resentment hides behind charm, hostility masked as wit. It gives her a way to wound you without ever looking cruel. If you react, she blames your sensitivity. If you stay quiet, she keeps slicing. It's a no-win game, designed to make you question your own judgment. And slowly, you begin to doubt yourself. You wonder if maybe you are too sensitive. You start censoring your words, your humor, even your opinions, just to avoid being mocked again. That's how sarcasm destroys men. Not loudly, but systematically. It turns confidence into self-doubt, and communication into a minefield. A woman who respects you uses humor to connect. A woman who resents you uses humor to control. Because every sarcastic jab carries a hidden message. I no longer admire you. When affection dies, sarcasm takes its place. When empathy fades, mockery fills the silence. You see, cruelty in a soft tone is still cruelty. And when I'm joking becomes a shield, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance, playing the role of the fool so she can feel clever. Here's the truth she hides behind her smile. Sarcasm is a coward's weapon. It kills respect without leaving fingerprints. And the day her jokes start drawing blood is the day you stop laughing and start seeing clearly. Number 7. The touch she avoids. It starts with something so small you almost ignore it. You reach for her hand and she doesn't pull away. Not exactly, but she doesn't meet your touch either. Her fingers stay limp in yours, her body slightly turned, her eyes elsewhere. You lean in for a kiss, and she gives you the cheek. You hug her goodnight, and her arms barely move. It's no longer a connection. It's choreography. You tell yourself it's stress, fatigue, a bad day. But your instincts know better. Something inside her has already detached. Psychologically, this is called withdrawn affect. When physical intimacy fades, not because of exhaustion, but because the emotional bond has fractured. Her body still exists beside you, but her nervous system is already gone, and the body always tells the truth first. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, drops when resentment grows. Cortisol, the stress hormone, spikes when presence feels unsafe. Her flinch isn't conscious, it's biological. Her body now associates you with tension, not comfort. That's why the space between you feels colder, heavier. You can sense it in the way she walks past you, how she avoids brushing against you, even in tight spaces. The silence between you has become physical. And here's the cruel part, she'll deny it. If you ask, she'll say, "You're imagining things," or "You're being clingy." She'll make you feel irrational for noticing what her body has already confessed. But the truth is, you're not imagining it. You're witnessing the final stage of emotional death, when the body begins to reject the relationship before the mind dares to admit it. A woman in love leans in. A woman in hate recoils. When her touch feels like obligation, when affection becomes routine, the relationship is already gone. She just hasn't told you yet. Her body speaks before her mouth can lie. And when her body flinches at your presence, love has already left the room. Number 8, the last priority. You notice it slowly, like a light dimming in a room you once called home. She's always busy, always somewhere else. Her phone buzzes, and she smiles, not at you, but at someone on the other end. A friend's crisis, a co-worker's drama, a family favor. She drops everything for them, but when you need her, she's suddenly exhausted. "I'm too busy. I'll call you later." And later never comes. It's not about time. It's about value. Psychologically, where a person invests their energy reveals their emotional hierarchy. Time is currency, and she's no longer spending it on you. Every "maybe tomorrow" is a quiet declaration. You are no longer essential. You start to adapt. You stop asking. You stop expecting. You tell yourself she's overwhelmed, that things will calm down. But they don't, because this isn't chaos. It's choice. She's choosing everything else over you. Once, you were her safe place. Now you're just background noise. You feel it when she cancels plans for girls' night, when she forgets your messages but replies instantly to someone else's, when you're sitting beside her and she's more connected to her screen than to your presence. This is how disrespect matures, not through conflict, but through neglect. Indifference becomes the final insult, because when a woman truly no longer cares, she doesn't scream, she doesn't fight, she disengages. And here's the truth most men don't want to face. You are not losing her time by accident. You are being demoted in her emotional ranking. Someone who truly values you will make time, not find it. When a woman is in love, she rearranges her world for you. When she secretly resents you, she lets the world rearrange you out of hers. So remember this. Where she invests her time, she invests her respect. And if you're no longer part of her schedule, you're no longer part of her story. You've seen the signs, the jokes that cut, the silence that suffocates, the touch that feels empty. 8 small fractures that don't just break the relationship, they break you. If you recognized even one of them, understand this. You're not overreacting. You're not paranoid. You're finally awake. Disrespect doesn't arrive overnight. It creeps in quietly, through laughter that belittles, through words that sting, through moments that make you question your worth. It rewires you, slowly convincing you to accept less, to expect less, to be less. But now you see it for what it is, and once you see, you can't unsee. A woman who truly loves you won't need to control you. She won't humiliate you to feel powerful or withhold affection to make a point. She builds with you, not above you, not around you, but with you. But a woman who secretly despises you will never say it directly. she'll chip away at you until you no longer recognize yourself. That's not love, that's corrosion. You can't fix contempt. You can't bargain for respect. And you can't heal in the same space that's been poisoning you. So stop begging for her attention. Stop negotiating for basic decency. Stop mistaking endurance for strength. Respect isn't something you earn by suffering. It's something you claim by walking away. When you leave, you're not running from her. You're returning to yourself. You're reclaiming the version of you that stopped apologizing for wanting peace. So, if this spoke to you, if it opened something you've been afraid to face, write it down below. Type these words. Truth decoded. Because the moment you name the truth, you break its hold on you. The truth will hurt before it heals. But it's the only medicine that sets men free. She texts you just enough to keep you hooked, cancels plans with a sweet excuse, and still somehow makes you feel guilty for noticing. Sounds familiar? That's not bad luck. That's strategy. You've fallen into the quietest trap in modern dating, being the man she keeps on standby. But here's the twist. It's not her fault you're stuck there. It's yours, because you've been playing by rules that never favored you. If you've ever wondered why women chase one man but forget another, this is your wake-up call. In the next few minutes, I'll give you the 7 psychological steps that make a woman stop taking you for granted and start fighting for your attention. If you've ever been that man waiting for her text, wondering what changed, today is the day you stop waiting and start taking control. Before we move on, hit subscribe, like, and write one simple line in the comments. I'm done being an option. Say it out loud if you have to. That's your first step toward emotional reset. Because what comes next isn't theory. It's the start of your rebuild. And once you understand this first truth, everything about how you show up with women will start to shift. Number 1, read the room. If you've ever caught yourself waiting for her reply that never comes, replaying the same unanswered message on your phone, it's not bad luck. It's a pattern. You're being quietly downgraded. She's not saying it out loud, but every delay, every cancelled plan, every sorry, got busy is a silent signal. You're not the priority, you're the placeholder. When a woman's interest fades, she doesn't always leave. Sometimes she keeps you around just enough to feel wanted, without ever giving back the same energy. That's what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. It's when rewards are given inconsistently, just enough to keep you hooked, craving the next moment of affection. It's not love, it's emotional conditioning. The human brain reacts to uncertainty like a drug. Every time she disappears, then suddenly sends a "Hey stranger" text, dopamine spikes. You confuse that high with connection, when really it's dependency. You start chasing that rush, not her, but the illusion of what you thought she felt. And that's how good men stay stuck. Here's the truth most men don't want to face. She doesn't keep you around because she needs you. She keeps you around because she can. Because you haven't shown her that your absence costs something. You're available, predictable, and replaceable. The perfect emotional safety net. And let's be honest, you've probably told yourself she's just busy, or that she'll come around. That's not optimism, that's denial. Every time you excuse her behavior, you teach her it's acceptable. Every time you stay, you tell her you'll tolerate being plan B. Reading the room isn't about being bitter or playing hard to get, it's about clarity. It's the moment you stop negotiating your worth with someone who's already discounted it. So ask yourself, is she making space for you or just keeping you in storage? If she's treating you like a background character in her story, then it's time you stop auditioning for a lead role. Number 2, the law of reciprocity. In every connection, romantic, professional, or social, value only exists when energy flows both ways. The moment you start pouring more than you receive, the balance breaks and respect collapses. Most men don't realize it until it's too late. When you keep showing up for someone who doesn't reciprocate, you stop being desirable and start being convenient. Reciprocity isn't some poetic concept, it's behavioral economics. When she gives less and still gets your full attention, her brain registers one thing. Your effort has no price. She learns that she doesn't need to try. She can give you crumbs and still get a feast of validation in return. That's not attraction. That's conditioning her to undervalue you. Think about the last time you texted first, apologized first, adjusted your schedule first, all while she gave the bare minimum. That's not generosity. That's self-neglect, dressed as kindness. Every time you reach out first, you're rewarding low effort. Every time you accept the imbalance, you're teaching her how little it takes to keep you around. If love is a currency, stop trading gold for her breadcrumbs. Your attention, time, and emotional energy are assets, not donations. The more you give them away without a return, the faster they lose their worth. Here's what psychology says. People mirror behavior that benefits them. When you stop over-investing, one of two things will happen. She'll either step up to match your energy, or she'll drift away because the free supply is gone. Either way, you win. You regain clarity. Pulling back isn't about punishment, it's about recalibration. You're not withdrawing love, you're re-establishing value. When your availability stops being guaranteed, she's forced to re-evaluate what your presence actually means. That's the shift. Remember this truth. Every time you reward low effort, you're reinforcing the behavior that made you feel small in the first place. Reciprocity isn't about ego. It's about emotional economy. When both sides invest fairly, respect compounds. When one side overpays, connection dies in debt. So from now on, don't beg for balance. Create it. Number 3, you come first. Here's something most men never realize until they've already lost themselves. The moment you start orbiting around her, you begin to fade from her sight. A man who builds his world around a woman eventually becomes invisible in it. You stop being magnetic and start being manageable. And once you're manageable, you're forgettable. Women aren't drawn to men who chase them. They're drawn to men who chase purpose. There's a psychological principle behind it. Self-orbit attraction. When a man radiates direction, focus, and internal gravity, people naturally align around him. But when he gives up that center, when his emotional balance depends on her attention, the polarity collapses. You stop being a man she's intrigued by and start being one she controls. Think of it like this. She's not the sun and you're not a planet in her orbit. You are your own gravity. Every goal you chase, every boundary you set, every decision you make, those are the elements that create your field. And that field either pulls people in or repels those who don't belong there. You want her to notice you again. Don't text more. Don't prove harder. Build stronger. Invest in your health, your ambition, your mission. Not for her, but because those things remind you of who you are when you're not seeking approval. That energy, the quiet, unbothered certainty, is what creates attraction. It signals value without words. Women subconsciously read social proof. When they sense that your world is full, that you're fulfilled, respected, desired, they feel an instinctive pull. It's not manipulation. It's magnetism. The same way people gather around a fire, not because the fire asks them to, but because it burns on its own. So stop orbiting her. Reclaim your gravity. You were never meant to revolve around someone's moods or schedules. The moment you step back into your own axis, that's when she notices the space you've created and the silence that used to belong to her. Because here's the paradox of attraction. The second she realizes you're fulfilled without her, that's when she starts chasing your attention. Number 4, the novelty factor. Predictability kills desire, not instantly, but slowly, like oxygen leaving a room. When a woman already knows what you'll say, when you'll reply, and how you'll react, you stop being a person she's drawn to and start being a pattern she's memorized. And the human brain doesn't crave what it already understands. It craves surprise. Psychologists call it habituation. It means the more familiar a stimulus becomes, the weaker the emotional response. The same joke stops being funny. The same touch stops feeling electric. The same conversation stops being exciting. You're not boring. You've just become predictable. Here's the part most men don't get. She's not losing interest because you did something wrong. She's losing interest because she can see your next move before you make it. When every reply comes instantly, every invitation feels expected, and every action follows a script, there's no tension left to pull her in. You don't have to disappear or play games. What you need is pattern disruption. Create moments that make her pause. Moments where she can't quite read you. Take a few hours before replying. End a conversation on your own terms. Try something new, unexpected, and unannounced. Do it not to provoke her, but to remind yourself that your time and energy have rhythm, not permanence. A man who is easy to read is easy to forget, but a man who carries an element of mystery, not secrecy, but depth, activates a different part of her brain. Dopamine spikes when the outcome is uncertain. She starts checking your profile, rereading messages, replaying your tone in her head. You've stopped being a script and become a story again. Mystery isn't manipulation. It's magnetic tension. It's the subtle art of keeping her curious, keeping her invested. The more she wonders, the more she feels. And that curiosity fuels attraction far stronger than validation ever could. So never let her feel like she solved you. Be the man she's still trying to figure out, not the one she's already defined. Predictability makes her comfortable. Unpredictability makes her intrigued. And between comfort and curiosity, desire will always choose curiosity. Number 5. Be the prize. The more accessible something is, the less it's valued. That's not cynicism. That's psychology. Scarcity bias, a proven behavioral truth, states that people assign higher worth to what feels limited. So when your time, attention, and emotional energy are always available, they stop being meaningful. You become a constant, and constants are invisible. When a woman knows she can reach you anytime, she stops reaching with intention. When she knows you'll answer immediately, she stops crafting her words carefully. When she knows you'll always forgive, she stops fearing the loss. That's not confidence on her part. It's conditioning on yours. Being the prize doesn't mean acting superior. It means understanding that your value is determined by how selectively you share yourself. You don't need to announce it. You simply adjust your behavior. You reply when you actually have the time. You share less, not because you're hiding, but because you've learned the difference between intimacy and exposure. A treasure loses its value when it's left in the open. What's rare feels sacred. What's constant feels common. When you become emotionally scarce, when you stop broadcasting your availability, she begins to feel your absence. And the human brain reacts to absence with curiosity, even anxiety. That's loss aversion in motion. We feel the pain of losing something twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining it. So when she senses that your attention is no longer guaranteed, her instincts awaken. She replays your last conversation. She starts to wonder if someone else has your focus now. It's not about jealousy. It's about recalibration. She's realizing your presence had a weight, and she took it for granted. The less she knows about what's next, the more she'll want to find out. That's not playing games. That's allowing space for tension to breathe. You're not punishing her with silence. You're reminding her that your energy is earned, not entitled. When your time and attention become rare, her interest becomes real. Because attraction isn't built on abundance, it's built on anticipation. And when you finally give her your focus again, it won't feel casual. It'll feel like a reward. Number 6, draw the line. Respect doesn't come from what you tolerate. It comes from what you refuse to. Every relationship, whether romantic or not, is a negotiation of boundaries, the invisible lines that teach others how to treat you. When those lines blur, connection turns into convenience, and the person who refuses to set standards becomes the one everyone tests. Let's be clear. Boundaries aren't ultimatums. They're not threats, demands, or emotional walls. They're quiet declarations of self-worth. When you draw the line, you're not saying, "Don't cross me." You're saying, "This is the level of access my peace requires." It's not about control. It's about clarity. Take something simple. She cancels plans for the 3rd time. Most men respond emotionally. They argue, chase, or beg. But strength isn't in the reaction. It's in the restraint. Silence, distance, and consistency communicate far more than confrontation ever will. When your energy stops being reactive, your absence starts speaking louder than your words. Psychologists call it psychological reactance. When someone senses they're losing freedom, they instinctively desire what's slipping away. So when you withdraw calmly, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, she starts to feel that shift. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer waiting. You've drawn a line. And suddenly, she has to decide if she's willing to step back across it. A man without boundaries is like a door that never closes. Easy to enter, easier to leave. Every time you let someone cross your limits without consequence, you're not being kind. You're being complicit in your own neglect. Here's the truth most men never learn. Consistency builds credibility. When your boundaries stay firm, your presence starts to mean something again. People, including her, respect what they can't manipulate. So next time she pushes, don't explain your worth. Show it. Don't argue your standards. Enforce them quietly. The power isn't in telling her what you'll no longer accept. It's in showing her that you mean it. When she knows your standards, she'll rise to meet them or step aside. Either outcome protects your peace. And that's how boundaries stop being rules and start becoming respect. 7. Show her what she could lose. Every man wants to be wanted, but few understand the difference between being wanted and being needed. The first is temporary, based on attention, novelty, or charm. The second is deeper, built on the kind of value that can't be replicated once it's gone. Irreplaceability isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about becoming the man whose absence echoes louder than his words ever did. So how do you reach that point? By becoming whole, not dependent, not performative, but anchored. Irreplaceable men share 3 traits: emotional depth, stability, and vision. They don't chase connection. They create gravity. They bring clarity to chaos, calm to intensity, and purpose to uncertainty. That's what makes a woman pause before she walks away. Because deep down, she knows she may find someone new, but she won't find this. When you offer emotional depth, you give her safety. When you embody stability, you become her peace. And when you have vision, when you're building something greater than the relationship itself, you become her inspiration. Those 3 things form the foundation of masculine energy that can't be duplicated. Every woman remembers the man who made her feel safe and slightly scared to lose him. Not because he threatened to leave, but because his presence carried weight. He didn't need to prove his worth. He lived it. His silence spoke louder than any declaration. His focus made her realize she was part of something rare. You don't win her by proving you're the best. You win her by being the one she can't forget, the one who touched her life with certainty, not need. When you operate from abundance, not scarcity, you stop competing with other men entirely. You exist in a category of your own. And here's the paradox of power. The moment she realizes losing you would mean losing her balance, that's when you've become the priority. Because true influence doesn't come from chasing attention. It comes from embodying value so solid that attention chases you. That's the man she doesn't play games with. That's the man she rethinks everything for. And that's the man you're becoming. You started this video wondering why she treats you like an option. Why you feel like the man she calls when she's bored, but forgets when she's busy. Now you know the truth. It was never just about her choices. It was about your boundaries, your energy, and what you taught her to expect. Because in every relationship, spoken or not, you're teaching people how to value you. Every unanswered message you accept, every cancelled plan you forgive without consequence, every time you overextend to prove your worth, you write the script of how you'll be treated. And the good news? You can rewrite it anytime. You don't need to chase, convince, or negotiate for attention. You only need to remember this. You teach people how to value you by the way you value yourself. When you start showing up like a man who knows his worth, you won't have to demand respect. It will arrive uninvited. Look back at where you began, the guy who waited for her texts, who accepted uncertainty as affection. That man doesn't exist anymore. You've learned to read the room, balance reciprocity, and reclaim your gravity. You've discovered that mystery isn't manipulation, it's magnetic. You've drawn lines that protect your peace and built presence that commands attention. Now, you're not the guy she calls when she's bored. You're the man she can't stop thinking about. The one whose silence says more than his words ever could. The one whose absence feels heavier than his presence ever did. And remember this, when you know your worth, silence becomes your weapon, distance becomes your language, and scarcity becomes your power. You're not being cold, you're being clear. If this message hit you hard, it's because you needed to hear it. Don't just listen to it, live it, walk with it. Let it reshape the way you show up in every connection you have. Subscribe to this channel because here we don't chase approval. We study psychology, master energy, and reclaim emotional power. I'll see you in the next one.